Okay, the next part we're going to go into is called factoring terms with a common factor. Basically, it's kind of like what we were doing with the fraction in the last part, right? You find the common factor for the two things, and then you pull it out. So, like we did in the last video, I did 6 over 9. Okay, and what I did was the common factor for those. Okay, we had 1, 2, 3, and 6. You have 1, 3, and 9. And so the common factor was 3, so we factor it out by dividing. Take it out of it, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and there's your answer. Okay? Well, it's the same thing here, but really what they kind of do is they like to refer to it like it's the opposite of the distributive property. Okay, so hopefully everybody remembers the distributive property. If you don't, you might be in some trouble. Alright, so when we do the distributive property, right, you take the part that's on the outside of the parentheses and you multiply it by both parts that are inside, or both terms inside, right? So you get 3a times b squared, so you get 3ab squared, and then 3a times 2, so that'll be plus 6a. Okay, well, when you're doing the factoring, I'll switch colors here. When you're doing the factoring, you're going to find now what are the factors that they have in common. So if you look here, okay, well, we kind of cheated because we started from the beginning, right? But if you look and you broke it down to its factors, you would notice that this is 3a times b squared, and this is 3a times 2. And so they have in common this 3a. So what you're doing now is you're pulling that out. Okay, so we take out that 3a, and what's left now, okay, that's gone. So what's left in the first part is b squared, and then plus, and take that out, so we have times 2. There you go. So there we go. So factoring is just the opposite of distributing. You find what's common to the two terms, or three terms, or four terms, or five terms, however many there are, and you pull it out of all of them. Okay, so the next example it gives you in your notes is this 5x squared plus 15x. Okay, now this is where knowing your multiplication is going to be huge for you. Okay, this will make it really, really easy if you can just look at things and see it really, really fast. Okay. All right, so if you look here, okay, both terms have a factor of 5 in common. Okay, so they both have this 5. And then they both, okay, if you look at the x's, they both have one x in common. Now the first term has two x's, okay, x squared, but they only both have one x, so you can only pull out one of them. So the x is in common, okay? So now when you take 5x out of this, okay, so 5x, and we would do times x, right? Let me change colors there, 5x times x. When you pull the 5x out of there, you're left with this x here. Okay, then we do our little plus. And if you take 5x out of this, to get from 5x to 15x, that'd be times 3. So you cross out the 5x, you got 3 left over. And there's your answer. So you got 5x times the quantity of x plus 3. And to check to see if you're right, you just multiply it back together. So 5x times x is 5x squared, and 5x times 3 be 15x. And there you go. We're right back where we started. Okay, so factoring by pulling out common terms is pretty simple because you just got to just check your work by multiplying it back together. Okay, if you keep working your way down your notes here after the big box at the top of page 2, you'll notice these 3 extra example problems that we have. Okay, and we're doing the same thing here. We just want to factor out what's common. So if you look at the two terms in the first one here, okay, we have a 3x squared and we have a 3. So obviously if you look at that, the thing that's in common is going to be a 3. So in the first term it's 3 times x squared, and in the second term it's just 3 times 1. Now that's the tricky part right there. A lot of people forget that this is actually times 1, and they forget to put in that little plus 1 at the end. So don't forget that. Okay, so now we bring out our 3, and what are we left with? So we bring out our 3 of the first one, we're left with x squared, and then we have plus, and you bring the 3 out, we have 1. And there you go. So if you multiply that back together, 3x squared plus 3. Perfect. Alright, so hopefully you're kind of catching the hang of this a little bit and you can look ahead. Okay, so 16 and 20, the common factor between 16 and 20 is going to be 4. And then they both have these a squareds in common also, so I'm going to pull out an a squared. Now that's the only thing else that they have. So in the first term, to get from 4a squared to the rest, we have to multiply it times 4 and b squared. And in the second one, we have to multiply it just times 5, and that gives us 20a squared. So when we pull out that 4a squared, you get 4b squared in the first term because that's gone. And then in the second one, you're just left with 5, so it's plus 5. And you're done. There you go. Nice and simple. Okay, so hopefully you're kind of catching the hang of this a little bit. Let's do this last one and see how you did. Alright, so if you look at the numbers, the thing that we have in common is a 3. And then if you look at the x's, this one has x to the 5th, this has x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, and x squared. Well, if you look, all of them only in common have the x squared, right? Because this one, the one on the end here, this doesn't have 5 x's, so you can't pull out 5 of them. It doesn't even have 3 x's, so you can't pull out 3. It only has 2, so you got to only pull out 2. Okay, so our common term or common factor is 3x squared. That'll be your common one. Okay, and now, so now what you think now, without having to go through all those steps that we did before, okay, to get from 3x squared to 15x squared, x to the 5th, 3 times 5 is 15, and x squared times x to the 3rd gives us x to the 5th. Okay, and then to get from 3 to negative 12, we'll do times negative 4, and then x squared times x squared will give us x to the 4th. Okay, and then to get from 3 to 27, we're going to do plus times positive 9. And to get from x squared to x to the 3rd, we need one more x. And then finally in the last one, to get from 3 to 3, we just need 1. Oh, it's negative 3, so we need negative 1. And to get from x squared to x squared, that would be negative 1, just a 1 also, so that's just going to leave it there. And that is the final answer. Okay, so that's all you have to do. Find what's common to every term and pull it out. Now this is the first step in factoring any polynomial, so you always want to check for this first before you do anything else. Alright, you got a few try these there at the bottom. Give those a shot. Alright, so let's look at the try these. Okay, so if you look at the first term here, this one has an x squared, so this has 2 x's, this has a 3 and 1x. So the only thing in common between the two is just 1x. Okay, so that's all we can pull out is this x. So now to get from our x to our x squared, we're going to multiply that times an x, and that now has 2 x's, okay, or x squared. Okay, and then to get from x to 3x, we got x times 3, and we're done. Okay, next one over here on the right, top right. If you 3, negative 5, and 2, well, there's no numbers that are common to all those. It would just be a 1, right? So that doesn't really change anything. So we're not going to worry about that. Let's just look then at the variables. We have x to the 6th, x to the 3rd, and x squared. Okay, and so the only thing it can have in common is the least number. Okay, so x squared, because this one can't have 6 x's, and this can't have 3 x's also either. So what we're going to pull out is just an x squared. Now to get from x squared to 3x to the 6th, we need a 3, and then we need 4 more x's, right? There you go. To get from x squared to negative 5x to the 3rd, we need a negative 5, and we need 1 more x. And then to get from x squared to positive 2x squared, we need just a positive 2. And you're done. That's it. Alright, this third one. 9, negative 15, and 3. Our common factor there would be 3. Okay, they're all factors of 3, right? Then we got x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, and x squared. Oh, I drew that a little too fast, didn't I? There we go, get rid of that really quick. So our common factor there is x squared. So to get from 3x squared to 9x to the 4th, we need a 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And we need 2 more x's. to get from 3 to negative 15, that's a negative 5. And x squared to x to the third, we just need one more x. And to get from 3x squared to 3x squared, we're just going to multiply it times 1. Okay, remember that identity property of multiplication right there. Hopefully you remember your properties. Alright, so the last one, this is kind of a bigger one, right? Got 3 terms, got 2 variables, lots to do. So we got 12, 3, and 6. So those are all factors of 3. Okay, multiples of 3. So with our m's, the least m that we have is m squared. And our n's, the least we have is n. Alright, so now to get from 3m squared n to 12m to the fourth n to the fourth, 3 times 4 is 12. M squared, so we need 2 more m's. Excuse me. We have 1 n and we need 4 n, so we need 3 more. Okay. To get from 3 to 3, we just need 1, so we don't even need to put the 1 in there. M squared to m to the third, we just put m. And n to n squared, we need 1 more n. And finally, 3 times 2 is 6, m squared, n. And we are done. Alright, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Give some of those problems on the worksheets a try.